Hello YouTube, welcome back to the continuation of the sound training seminar that I'm presenting. We've completed some training regarding frequencies in our last few classes. Today we're going to talk about some hardware, and we're specifically going to be focusing on the mixer, the mixing desk or mixing console as we know it. That little thing with all the knobbies on them, as you see in the picture right now. I'm going to mention a few of the hardware equipment that we use alongside sound to create the sound, and in future classes we will be focusing on some of them and paying some attention to them, but for now the focus will be on the mixer. Let me list some of the ones that we use. We use things like a mixer, EQ or equalization units, sometimes built into the mixer, sometimes external units for the house. We use effects units, which can be many. They can be compression, delay, reverb. They can once again be built into a mixer or sometimes be external units. Obviously cabling and cables, which we will look at, amps, crossovers, what they do, speakers. We've touched on how a speaker works. Monitors, microphones, we've also touched on how microphones work. CD players, tape decks, DVD players, MP3 players, iPods, all of that. And then various instruments and sound generating sources. So these will be the things that we'll be looking at, but for today we're going to be focusing on the mixer. There are various different areas on a mixer that we will be discussing shortly, but firstly let's start with the channels versus the masters and the subgroups and or mix outputs. What you see before you now is a mixer, and here to the left you see the channel. Now the channels are the actual places where input comes from. They are normally directly connected to the source, be it a piano, a drum kit, a guitar, a vocal, a CD player, an iPod, or a PC that generates sound. The channels are where the sound comes in and is controlled and influenced. That sound is then generally routed to one of 2 or 3 or 4 different places. The first place that it is often routed is to the monitor mix for the guys on stage, or in a studio environment it will be to the headphones, which are pretty much the same as monitors. It's where the performer hears in their ears what is taking place, and they have the option to have a mix that suits them. The next place typically that you would send these signals to would be your subgroups. Subgroups are used for various reasons. One example is if you have drums, you're miking up the whole drum kit. You have kick drum, snare drum, tom 1, 2 and 3, overhead, left, right, and maybe hi-hat. 8 different microphones coming in through 8 different channels. You'll subgroup them together. Send them to a subgroup, to a submix, where you have control over the entire group of 8 by using 1 or 2 faders. Be aware of the fact that you can group many of your instruments or sources together to a subgroup. If you look on this mixer, I'm just taking this as an example, you will be selecting subgroup 1 and 2, for example. Then it means that this channel will be sent to group 1 or 1 and 2, depending again on whether you're using stereo or not. Thirdly and mostly lastly would be the master. That would be the house sound in most cases, or in a studio environment it will be that which you're hearing in the control room, or possibly even that would be what would be going out to tape. In the old language, today we record digitally, so we don't go out to tape anymore, but that would be your master going out of your desk. That is the final mix, the final stereo, or if you're using surround sound, the final surround sound mix. So those are 3-4 specific areas where signal can pass through a mixer and be influenced. There are several other factors as well that we can consider. Things like your direct outs. Direct out simply meaning that the signal comes in through the channel and it has the option of being sent directly out to something else and passing along to the mixer. Things like your inserts, which we will chat about a little bit later in signal flow, is another thing to consider. Through your monitor or auxiliary outs, you have the option of sending something to an external unit like a reverb unit or a delay, and then returning it back. But again, I will pause and explain more about that in detail in a later lesson. For now, just be aware that you have your basic channels. Here they are. They are where the signals come in. They can be sent out to monitors or headphones or effects units. They can also be grouped together in subgroups so that you have control over several of them with one or two faders. And then again, they all will be sent to masters, which is what goes out to the house or the control room in the studio, or the final master mix that will be going to a CD or DVD.